now. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Justin Chan. I'm the Associate Director for Accounting Services and Financial Reporting. You are in the Accessing Financial Information OBIEE-BI Dashboards class. This is our third class in a series of three. But like the other presentations, this presentation will be recorded and the slides will be available as a PDF as soon as we are in a few hours after we are finished, and then a survey will be available at the end of the session. I think we kindly ask if all of our attendees can list their areas that they are working in or from to give us a better idea of kind of the people and the processes that are attending today. Next slide, please. Here is our list of presenters. We have almost our entire department today, and if you need to reach out to anyone in the department, asfr@fullerton.edu is our main listserv where you can reach any of us. Next slide, please. This is the agenda. Next, we'll be going over a general overview, accessing financial information, OBIEE basics, revenue expense summary, liability account dashboards, my query dashboards, delegation of authority, and announcements. Thank you, everyone, for letting us know which areas you're from. It's very helpful to get an idea of who is here. Next slide, please. Here is a notification sent out by Central IT. They are actually planning to move from OBIEE-BI dashboards to Titan Insights. This is scheduled to start spring of 2025, which is right now. With that being said, we do not have access to this dashboard yet, but we do expect OBIEE to go away by the summer of 2025. With all of that being said, we think a lot of the information here is still very applicable, and hopefully a lot of the information will transfer to the new system. We haven't had access to the new system yet, but we're hoping it's generally going to be mostly the same, but we will find out more, and we will have, I'm sure, updated trainings once we learn more about the new system. Next slide, please. And to follow up on training, Lori Arthur has an excellent training on revenue expense summary. It can be accessed anytime from the Titan Training Hub. Several of our accountants recommend this course, and they've found it to be very helpful. So here's another training resource for revenue expense summary. Next slide, please. And then up next will be Nathan to go over accessing financial information. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Nathan. For this section, I will provide an overview of the financial data warehouse, OBIEE, and how to access to OBIEE. Next slide, please. So what is OBIEE? OBIEE stands for Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition. It's an online repository for data and information. Basically, the data warehouse combines financial data from different departments in one location and allowing users to view, filter, search, and download information. Please keep in mind that the data from OBIEE is refreshing overnight. So if you run OBIEE in the morning, let's say today in the 28th, your data will contain information from the day before, which is January 27th. If you want to view today financial information, you must wait until tomorrow morning. Next slide, please. So how can you access to OBIEE? You can log in your CSUF portal, scroll down to the Titan Online, and look for OBIEE-BI Dashboard item as demonstrated on the screen. Next slide, please. If you don't have access to OBIEE in Titan Online, you can request your access using these steps. Step 1, sign in Adobe Experience Manager or AEM, or you can use the hyperlink on the screen. Step 2, complete Finance System Access Request form. And please note that if you want to request OBIEE access for a new employee, the new employee must have the CWIT number ready, and payroll must add their information and their CWIT number into the system before you can fill out this form. If you have any question or need further instruction on how to complete the form, you can either review the instruction on the website or reach out to cmssecurity@fullerton.edu. Next slide, please. This is how you sign into Adobe Experience Manager AEM that I mentioned earlier. Once you launch the AEM form portal, you will be directed to this page. Next slide, please. When you are in, navigate to My Form section and type Finance on the search bar. There will be 2 options showing up. Please select Finance System Access Request Form. Next slide, please. Please fill out this information. Begin with the CWIT number, and other information will be populated. You can review your information, select finance role, cite your name, and submit. Next slide, please. Sometimes you may see this error when you log into OBIEE. This is a very common error that we have seen so far. Usually when the data requests have not been completed yet, you may also see this error when you try to log in OBIEE very early in the morning. So we recommend that you log into the report no earlier than 8 a.m. in the morning. If you see this error, please wait 15-20 minutes, clear your cache and your browser history, and try to log in again. Next slide, please. When you log into OBIEE, you will see the OBIEE dashboard. So OBIEE dashboard provide different group of data warehouse information based on specific criteria. For example, delegation of authority, liability account, my query, and revenue expense summary CFS. Please ignore the revenue expense legacy because it's outdated. Information about a group will be discussed later. Do you have any questions for me on this? Okay, moving on, David, we discussed about the OBIEE basic.
Good morning. My name is David. I will go over a few slides on the chart field and OBIEE report. Next slide, please. A fiscal year is 12 months period used for accounting and budget purpose. It's also known as a budget year. How is a fiscal year different from the calendar year? A fiscal year can start any month, not just on January 1st, and end on any month except December 31st. Our fiscal year is beginning on July 1st and end on June 30th. The current year fiscal year is 2024, starting on July 1st, 2024, and end on June 30th, 2025. Next slide, please. Accounting period is a set time frame for reporting campus financial transaction. It's also known as the fiscal period or financial period. The California State University Fullerton first accounting period from July 1st to July 31st, and the second accounting period from August 1st to August 31st. As you see on the slide, from period 1 through period 12. Next slide, please. PeopleSoft financial system require a child field to process transactions. The child field provide a common language for classifying an organization business transactions. The 6 child field values are: account is to record the nature of the campus financial transaction. Fund represent the source of money that the university has authorized to spend. Department ID is used for the campus organization structure. For example, academic affairs has multiple colleges and departments.
The program code and class are used to track specific expenses and revenue. For example, the program code starts with 7XXX, a billable program code that will automatically generate an invoice to the auxiliary organizations, such as ASC, ASI, and CSE FPF. Project is used to track for specific capital project expenditures or non-recurring repair and maintenance. Next slide, please. This is the list of chart fields and their description. For example, account number 660825 is for general services. Fund code THEFD for CSU operating fund. Department ID number 10065 is for the University Controller's Office. Non-billable program code 6863 is for Men's Water Polo, and billable program code 7806 is CSCF Philanthropic Foundation. Class code 2036 is for a consolidated course fee. Project ID 56220002 is for a student housing phase 5. Next slide, please. You can filter the campus organization structure depending on your access. You can also filter division. An example, you can see filter by admin and finance. You can also filter by subdivision or colleges, for example, financial services. Also, you can filter by master department or department. In this example, the controller office will be able to access Department ID 10005, 10006, 10065, and 10215. The University Control Office can run a report for the 4 departments, but Student Business Services can only run a report for the Department 10215. Please note that the Department 3 is used for the OBIEE Department Security. Next slide, please. If you click the web link, it will take you to the Accounting Service Financial Reporting webpage that provide you with the PeoplesSoft chart field information. The chart field value can be viewed and the Campus Titan online on the FIS resources hyperlink as it shows on the screen. Next slide, please. OBIEE is California State University for an online data warehouse, as Nathan explained previously. Each report has a filter that allows users to refine data by multiple criteria in order to narrow down what data is displayed. As you see on the screen, in the first box, we can filter by fiscal year by clicking the down arrow to select the fiscal year you wish. Also can select the accounting period, fund, account, program, class, and project by clicking the down arrow for each field. Also, the report can be modified and run in multiple rows and field sections for report heading fields. The second box for the actual detail report, the actual period is shown as 2024 and the accounting period between 6 and 7. Next slide, please. This shows how to select and unselect criteria to generate a report. Let's go through how to generate a specific project revenue expense report. We need to select the project tab by clicking the arrow down to select the project number 55000003 as it shows in the second box, then click the single arrow to the right to the selected section. Next slide, please. Also, we can search the criteria by which the chart field or description start, contain, and, or is like. Please pay attention if you select the matching case radio button, because it will match exactly what you type down to the capitalization. Next slide, please. Also, we can move or remove a selected project number by clicking the arrow as shown on the slide. One arrow move or remove on one selected item, and a double arrow move or remove or all the selected item. Next slide, please. Select the value from the left. Use the control button on the keyboard to select several values and click the arrow point to the right to move them to the selected on the right. Next slide, please. Select the value from the right. Use the control button on the keyboard, select several values, and select the arrow point to the left to remove from the selected field. Next slide, please. To select all projects, click double arrow point to the right to move all and continue to click down arrow point to the right until all projects are selected. Then select the three dots on the right, then click single arrow point to the left to remove from the selected field. The three dots means no project. Next slide, please. The red box and the report header field, we can change the report layout by rearranging the header field by selecting the arrow down. For example, we want the report to start with the department ID. So we select the department and the first header field. Also, we want the fund to be the next row. So we select the fund from the fund row, arrow, select, and so on for the other field. Next slide, please. Also, we can exclude the column from the report by clicking the arrow we want to exclude. Next slide, please. This shows how to reset the criteria to the default value by clicking the arrow down to reset to the default value. The current default value for fiscal year is 2024, and the current accounting period is 7. Next slide, please. If you scroll down to the bottom of the report, you will see the print report and export option. The preferred method for printing is a PDF file. Select the printable PDF format. We will open a new window with the PDF file report. Next slide, please. This is another printout option as the printable HTML. Next slide, please. The next print and export are the 5 export options, and one of the options to export the data in the PDF file. Next slide, please. Also, an option to export as an Excel file. The Excel file report will keep all the format and the merged cell and the report, which make the Excel file hard to use and manipulate the data. It is not advised to use this format. Next slide, please. Another option is to download the file to the PowerPoint. Next slide, please. Accounting service and financial reporting is recommended to export data in CSV format. This exporting in CSV format to Excel, it's easy to edit And the data in Excel file has access to all Excel tools, which are sorting data, pivoting the data, and so on. This method is preferred method to download the data. Next slide, please. Also, this is the Excel tips on rearranging the debit and credit. Please refer to the Accounting Service Financial Reporting Forums training we provide on January 1st, 2025, an Excel tips section for the detailed demonstration of sorting and tips for the Excel file. The forum presentation video is saved on Accounting Service and Financial Reporting website. Next slide, please. This shows the Excel data look after we use the Excel tip to sort the debit and credit. Does anyone have a question for me? If not, Tony will continue the revenue expense dashboard.
Hello, my name is Tony Lee, and I'll go over revenue expense summary report. Next slide. This gives you the balance as of the fiscal year and period the user enters. The report starts with budget column, current period actuals, current year actuals, encumbrance, pre-encumbrance, then followed by budget balance available column. Next slide. Once a requisition is created, it shows up under pre-encumbrance. Then purchase order is generated and the balance moves to encumbrance column. From encumbrance, it moves to current year actuals column once invoice voucher is generated. You can drill down on individual amount to see the details. Next slide. Here, the accounts starting with 5s are revenues, and the ones starting with 6s are expenses. From the revised budget, subtract current year actuals, encumbrance, and pre-encumbrance to arrive at budget balance available, BBA. Positive BBA means you have funds available to spend, and negative BBA means you overspent. Next, Winnie will continue with actuals detail report.
Hi, I'm Winnie, and I'll be going over actuals detail report with you today. So Tony just covered the revenue expense summary tab. This one is actuals detail tab. It's formally called actuals detail between accounting periods. So the important part about this OBIE report is that this is one of the backup documentations we require for our accounting services forms. So next here we have just kind of an example of the actuals detail report, and just kind of analyze what this image is showing you. So in this example here, at some point the department had requested had submitted an ETR to adjust a $49 expense. If that department was to submit a new ETR to adjust that $49, they can't. It's already been adjusted. So, that's one thing our team is on the lookout for. So we don't want any duplicate transactions like that. Here we have fields that are specific to the actuals detail report. So you can find this on our website. I believe the link for the OBIE info block was all the way back at the beginning of the presentation, but you can just go to our website. We got a new website, and just maneuver yourself to the finance data warehouse info block. So here we have a bunch of fields. These are correspond with the columns on the actuals detail report in OBIE. So the first one is document source. That would be what the transaction source is. We're going to go into a little bit more detail on some of those in a little bit. Journal ID would be a specific identification number associated with a transaction, and there's usually some kind of convention to it, so you can kind of, on a quick glance tell, okay, I know what this transaction source is, basically. Then there are 3 reference columns, which might have various information in there depending on the transaction, basically. Fiscal year and accounting period will also be listed as the way it has defined earlier in this training. So we're just gonna skip right past that. Actual stands for transaction amount. So you see expense and it's positive, that's your expense transaction amount in the regular balance, and so on. So these are the data sources. We actually have so many that this is one of 2 slides for the data sources. This first one is just going over the ones that correspond to accounting services team. These will usually be like your IFT transactions, that's interagency financial transaction, or your ETRs, expenditure transfer requests. So if you see our initials there, or internal journal entries, basically, if you see any of these, then you're gonna know that they belong to ASFR team, and you can reach out to us as listed on the website. So ABN is Betty Neri, and her extension is listed here, and it goes all the way down, and the last one is me, AWL, Winnie. So next is the rest of the document sources that we might encounter in the OBIE actuals detail report. So the first one is ALO, that stands for allocations. BIL, that would be billing, that would be like your request for invoices or your monthly invoices. So for that, Nathan is your contact. He is our biller. He handles the billing. Next we have document sources CSU. So that one's actually broken down between service providers and cashnet transactions. So you're going to see document source CSU, and to further narrow down what it is, you're going to look at the journal ID prefix. For service providers, it should be their 3-digit abbreviation. So for example, copier would be COP, PCAR would be PCD, and so on. And who you contact if you have questions about that is the service provider. So on the website, there's a link to the service provider contact list, and you can reach out to them if you have any questions about that transaction. If you see the document source is CSU and the journal ID prefix is CRS, that means that's a cashnet transaction. So that's what's been deposited at the cashier's office, generally. Then you see document source HCM, which has journal IDs prefixes for HRA and HRL. Those are referring to salary adjustments salary adjustments and expenses. So LCD, labor cost distribution. So those usually are fed from the human resources PeopleSoft system, but you can go ahead and reach out to us at asfr@fullerton.edu, and we will refer you to the correct place if you have questions about those transactions. Next, we have OBL, that's short for obligation, and I'm going to go into detail about that in a little bit for a very common entry some of you might have seen in your OBIE actuals detail reports. SFS, that is referring to Student Administration PeopleSoft system. And VCH, that is short for voucher. If you see that document source, that means it's an AP voucher, accounts payable voucher, or if it's an APC journal ID prefix, that's meaning a closure of an APV voucher. But you can reach out to accounts payable at that email address, ap@fullerton.edu, if you have questions about those. Okay, next. So one of the things that some of the criteria that you have on the actuals detail report that you do not have on the revenue and expense summary is account type and account category. So account type, basically OBIE is only going to show you revenues, expenses. That's all you're going to be able to see there. And you could break it down basically like, hey, I only want to look at expenditures. You can select account type 60 expenditures, and then you'll only see the expenses. You will not see the revenues. It's a matter of preference, or like if you're trying to narrow down something that you're not totally sure, like the exact account number. And then we have account category. This is another criteria you can use on the actuals detail report. So the account category would be the first 3 characters of the account, except for transfer in and transfer out accounts. Those do not match their actual account prefix. So here's a table to show you the account categories for revenue. So you can this might kind of help you break stuff down. Then we have the table for account category for expense. So if you are if you select account category 660, for example, all the way down here, miscellaneous operating expenses, you're going to get expenses for your department for such expense accounts as 660,825 general supplies, 660,003 for general services, and so on. So this is basically just one way of grabbing a bunch of data while specifying each account individually. Next. Okay, so here's we have a couple of slides to kind of show you some sample transactions um kind of like link together what you might expect to see in OBIEE actuals detail reports per document transaction. So for example, A here, for example, we have request for invoice RFI. If you took our forms training last week, you're going to know that's what you request to bill, and we will bill for you on behalf of the university. So for that, the document source is BIL for billing, and the document ID is always going to start with ASR. That is what the invoice number when we generate an invoice is. So that's the first row there. Example B, interagency financial transaction or IFT. So some of you might have experience emailing our ASFR team requesting IFTs to be initiated, or you might have heard from us requesting to know where to book it. So in this example specifically, the document source is ASN, as Sarah has booked this IFT, and the reference is always going to start with IFT. That will give you that will tell you what IFT identification that is, basically, because the chancellor's office will identify each IFT by a unique number. Example C, accounts payable invoice. So while ASFR does the billing, our accounts payable team, our neighbors here, they do the paying. So if your department has an invoice that is owed to like say Elevon or something, or I guess in this example, FedEx. So accounts payable invoice, you're gonna see it in the OBIEE actuals detail. You'll recognize it by the document source BCH for voucher, and generally the journal ID will start with APV for AP voucher. Example D, expenditure transfer request, ETR. So again, this document source will be one of our accounting document sources. In this example, Sarah again booked an ETR, and you can tell the difference between this one and the IFT based on, well, it won't have the IFT number in the reference field, but all journals will always start with 000. But yeah, this one is an ETR. Next sample transaction. Example E is going to be service provider chargeback. So for that, you're going to want to look at document ID column. The document ID should always start with CHBK, and journal ID will always start with the first 3 letters of the service provider. In our example here, it is Staples, STP. So we have a list of the service providers on our websites under, I think it's in the chargeback info block. But you can access that and you will know what service provider the transaction is. Example F is cashnet deposit. So you'll know that, as I mentioned before, based on the document ID, it starts with CR, document journal ID, we'll correct that. It should start with CRS, which is for CashNet transaction. And in this example, the reference S7050, that is just referencing a CashNet item code. It's not always going to be S7050. It might be some other CashNet item code. If you have submitted any deposit or deposit and reimbursement forms to the cashier's office, you'll know that there's a list of item codes you can use. Example G, billable LCD or labor cost distribution. This is referring to payroll. So in this case, since it's a billable transaction, you're going to know that by the document source BIL and the document ID starting with ASR for the invoice number. So how do you tell this apart from our regular request for invoice RFIs? So for this one, it's going to have a program 7806. RFI would never have a billable program, so this is giving you that hint. And in this example, it's billing to Philanthropic Foundation per what the program is set up to. And in this case, the account is 660-899, which is used just for month-end billing, basically. Okay. So we have a couple of examples now from our ASFR forms, basically. For this one, this is expenditure transfer request form. So at the top, you're going to see a screenshot that we just kind of pulled. This form is electronic. But for all ETRs, we generally are going to need an actual detail report from OBIEE. So that second screenshot in the middle there, that is the backup. Say this is a department who submitted this ETR. This is the backup to provide it. Once we've processed the expenditure transfer request, you'll see that will be the lines at the very bottom. That's what it's going to look like. That last row there, the credit for 7,940, that is applied against the original transaction, which is the middle screenshot. And then the ending transaction is basically the class code as requested by the department in their ETR. Okay, next we have an example of an RFI. This one is revenue. So in the case of revenue, a request invoice for revenue, you do not need to submit an actual detail report. Okay, there is a different requirement, some kind of documentation that kind of outlines terms and amounts, but you do not need an actual detail report. This slide's just kind of show you what the RFI looks like in OBIEE after it's been processed. So here's the screenshot for that. Okay, next is RFI for expense abatement. This one you will need an actual detail report, as this is abating an existing expense. In this example, request for invoice form, say the department, they have an expense incurred, that would be the second screenshot there, $230.36. And they're submitting an RFI to bill ASC for this, basically. This is an abatement of that expense, billing Auxiliary Services Corporation, ASC. So they have to submit that that middle screenshot there. They have to submit an actual detail report of the original transaction. And then after it's been billed, it will credit that $230.36. Okay, and it'll give you an invoice number as well. Okay, next, P-card monthly accrual process. Okay, so gonna try my best to explain this. This is one of the this is one of the things that we get questioned about on occasion. Some of you might have seen an OBIEE actuals detail transaction with source code OBL. Like I mentioned before, this is what I'm talking about by OBL. So it's gonna be OBL, and then you see an account code 660-997, which is for concur not approved transactions. So what this is that these are used to record, like this account is only used to record P-card expense reports that are not in approved status in concur. So say the status is like pending approval or like not not submitted or sent back to user, so on. As long as it's not approved status, it is sitting in account 660997. Here's the thing. At the year end, June 30th, 660997 must be 0. It must be cleared. There cannot be a balance in 660997. This being that we have to basically apply it to the an estimated expense account or something, because if we leave in 6097, we are underreporting to the Chancellor's office in our financial reporting, and department's BBA or budget balance available will be overstated. So this monthly accrual process is basically to deals with that basically. So the P card bill, this basically goes from, for this fiscal year anyway, from August 2024 to May 2025 P card billing cycles. So the accrual entry is posted on August 1st. That's the first accrual entry, and then it gets reversed the following month, in this case September 1st, and every month it's going to do this. So we have an accrual entry posted August 1st, it's reversed September 1st, then the next month, and then another accrual entry is booked August 1st, and then reversed October 1st, and so on. That is until the concur expense report is in approved status. That's when it will not be part of the accrual process anymore. So we kind of made this chart, kind of try to explain it. So these are at the top here: unassigned, not submitted, submitted, and pending approval, approved at any travel or CMP review, and sent back to user. Those are some of the statuses your concur expense report might be. Until it is an approved concur expense approved status, it's gonna stay in the monthly accrual process with the OBL. Once it's approved, then the transaction gets posted to OBIE. Okay, so we have some tables here to try to explain like one example of this. So say someone has a concur expense report at the end of fiscal year, and I think we made this example a couple years back, but still relevant today. At the end of fiscal year 2021, this person has an concur P card expense report that is not approved yet. So starting August 1st of the new fiscal year, monthly accrual is initiated, and it's included in the entry as booked. So it's booked 660997, $15 as accrual entry. Auto accrual and this P card monthly accrual process gets reversed at the start of the next month. So you're going to see here September 1st, the second row there, credit $15. But also at the same time, the next monthly accrual entry gets booked, so another $15 September 1st, because at this time, like initially it was an unassigned status and now it's not submitted. As long as that reference, which is the concur status, as long as that is not approved, it's going to be included in the P card monthly accrual entry, the OBL entry. So if you're trying to, just get like the amount for this transaction that is not in approved status and concur, it's kind of as you can see, there's a lot in and out. So this is just kind of the second screenshot down here. It's just kind of showing you, okay, you can ignore the preceding entries as they net 0, when they reverse. So it is the most recent transaction you would look for in this case. So this example is of someone who has a P card expense report and concur that is still not approved. So it's going to keep rolling forward in the P card monthly accrual entry. So yeah, you want to make sure you get all your P card concur expenses reports approved in Concur. That way it won't come to this. So here's an example where finally this report is in approved status. So at the top is all the times when it was not yet approved, so it was part of monthly accrual. As of April 1st, in this case, it is finally approved, in which case it finally goes through the whole process from the Concur and it goes into CFS. It's no longer included on the monthly accrual process. So as you can see here, it's posted to 606001 instead of 660997. So this is after it's been approved. But that's kind of the gist of what the P-card monthly accrual process is. So you've seen OBL document source. This is highly likely what you're looking at basically in Actuals Detail Report. Next, we're going to go over really quickly the other reports in the Revenue and Expense CFS dashboard. There's 3 other reports that you might be interested in. Those are not reports that our department handles. So if you are looking at the budget detail report and you have questions, feel free to contact Resource Planning and Budget. We have the email here. If you're looking at the encumbrance detail report, which is for purchase orders, or the pre-encumbrance detail report, which is for requisitions, you can contact Conscious Procurement, and this is their email address. So we're just going to really quickly go through it. So this is budget detail. This is a screenshot of what's going to look like. So they have these scenarios that you can select. There's many of them. We just have a couple examples here, but if you actually go in there and look, you're going to see a lot of different examples. For example, BTR base, that's base budget. PY carry forward. Well, that says carry forward. Prior year carry forward. PYE&C, that's prior year encumbrance, and so on. So in the case of budget detail, right now in our example here, we have accounting period 7 selected. That means the range of data on this report is from period 1, July, to period 7, January. Okay, next we have encumbrance detail. So this is CMP, contract procurement. So in this example, accounting period 7, that means period 0, which is the beginning balance, to period 7, January. So that is different from how budget detail ranges. So just FYI. So in this one, there's a column for document source, and you might see E and C. That if you see E and C on there, that is standing for encumbrance or purchase order, PO. If you see PYB, that means prior balance or beginning balance, basically. For whatever reason, the document date listed for any document sources that are PYB, prior balance, they're always August 8, 1988. We don't know why, but it always is August 8, 1988. So if you see that date, that's what it means. It's prior balance.
Winnie, we have a question.
Okay.
Peggy, go on, Peggy.
Yes, thank you so much. I have a question. I'm fairly new to all of this, but I had submitted a requisition for a 3-year contract and it got approved, but I don't know if how would I find out the encumbrance funds if they encumbered them for year 2 and year 3? Because I've paid year 1, but I don't know if when they approved it, if they continue to encumbrance the funds for year 2 and 3, or if I have to resubmit a invoice to be paid.
I will take a stab at this. The
Okay.
encumbrances and POs and requisitions are managed by contracts and procurement. But for what I know, if you submit a requisition and it has to be sourced to a PO, there should not be any requisitions at the end of the year, at the end of 6/30. So if you have a PO, so let's say for this year, you have so you have 3 years, you have $3,000 for your PO. for the current fiscal year, you only paid 1,000. So you have an ending balance of 2,000.
Right.
There is a process that we run at the end of the year that rolls over balances so that $2,000 will be carried forward into the next fiscal year, 2025. That's what you're going to see, the PYB, prior year balance of 2,000 in your encumbrance detail report. There's also going to be a matching budget entry that says PY ENC to give you budget for that open PO. So I hope that answers your question, Peggy.
Well, it gets me a little closer to that there's something there that I can look up to
Okay.
see
Yeah.
what it is, because I submitted the requisition for 3 years, and then when it came back, I noticed that it had the amount for year one.
Okay, yeah, that would be a CNP question then. They might ask you to close out the open requisition for years 2 and 3 and then create them again when fiscal year 2025 is open. But that would be, yeah, you can email CNP and someone from their department will respond to you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for
Oh,
asking.
no worries, no worries.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Lynn.
Of course.
Okay. Lastly, the last other report you might be interested in using is the pre-encumbrance detail report. In this case, the accounting period, if it's selected as 7, that refers to data from periods 1 July to period 7 January, and your document sources you might see on this report: ENC, encumbrance or purchase order, or REQ, pre-encumbrance or requisition. As Lynn mentioned earlier, basically there would not be any prior year balance transactions, because all requisitions must be sourced to a purchase order or closed by year end, which is June 30th. So that's basically it for the revenue expense CFS dashboard. Does anyone have any other questions for us? Okay. Feel free to, ask us questions at the end, or, put it in the meeting chat. Next, we have Estrella Liability Accounts Dashboard.
Hi, this is Estrella, and I'm going over the liability accounts dashboard. We have another dashboard called the liability accounts. Liability accounts start with the number 2 and is mostly used for study abroad programs. Unlike revenue and expense accounts that are closed out at the end of the fiscal year, June 30, liability accounts are not closed out, meaning the balances are carried forward to the new fiscal year, July 1st. Next slide, please. The web link showed here will bring you to our website that provides step-by-step guide on how to access the liability account in OBIEE. So when you are on the OBIEE homepage, you will find the liability accounts dashboard by selecting it from the dashboard drop-down menu at the top of the page. Once you're in that dashboard, you will see 2 tabs. Next slide, please. This is the 25 XXS liability summary tab, and this will show results as of a period chosen. For instance, over here, if you choose period 7, it will show total balances from period 0, which is the beginning balance, to period 7. Beginning balance is the carry forward balances from previous year or years. Any remaining balance last fiscal year will be carried forward to this fiscal year. The current year actuals column shows total activity for the current fiscal year. Any transactions occurring in this fiscal year, like deposits or expenses, will be shown here. The liability balance will be the total of beginning balance, period 0, plus the current year actuals. A negative liability balance means that the money collected is more than the money spent, while a positive liability balance means you have overspent. Next slide, please. Accounting period includes all the transactions from period 0 to 7. And on the dashboard, when you click the amount link, it will drill down to an actuals detail report that will give you more information, which is similar to the actuals detail report in the revenue and expense dashboard. Next slide, please. The second tab is the 25 actual details between accounting periods tab. This shows actual transactions for selected period or periods. For instance, if you choose period 1 to 12, between period 1 and then 12, then transactions from periods 1 to 12 will show. So the top portion of the slide shows actual transactions for deposits. It has the document source, CSU, and journal ID that starts with CRS because these are cashnet entries. The second example is the expense. It has document source VCH for voucher and journal ID that starts with APV, which is from accounts payable. These are your invoices. The bottom slide shows example of beginning balance. The period 0, document source PYB, and journal date 08/08/1988 indicates transaction activity that's coming from the prior fiscal year, as Winnie mentioned earlier. The 1988 dates are not actual transaction dates, so keep that in mind. Next slide, please. ASFR, our team reconciles the study abroad program liability accounts. As shown here, the reconciliation includes student names and their corresponding payments. Any fund transfer and expenses paid are also monitored. Once the trip is over, please let us know so we don't roll over student names and expenses related to the concluded trip to the new one. Minimal unspent funds can be moved to a trust fund, whereas unspent funds that are like big in amounts must be transferred to students. Do you have any questions? So Nathan will go over the next slides.
Hello, everyone. This is Nathan again. In this section, I will cover another group in the OBIEE dashboard. This is my query chargeback. Next slide, please. This feature allows service provider to review their recharge transaction, and for security purposes, service provider can only view the information for their own department, and you can filter, exclude columns, move column around, and download just like what we cover in the revenue and expense summary section. Next slide, please. When reviewing the report, the journal template represents the service provider that charged your department. For example, as you can see on the bottom of this slide, COP stands for copy. Document ID begin with CHPK, indicate the recharge file that has been uploaded to CFS. Journal ID begin with the service provider abbreviation, follow with 7 numbers. So if you have any question or concern about the chargeback transaction, please contact the service provider. For more information about chargeback and service provider contact information, please visit our website or use the hyperlink on this slide. Next slide, please. Delegation of authority. This section allows users to look for appropriate approver for their department when they want to complete ASFR forms such as expenditure transfer request or request for invoice. For us and other departments like account payable, budget, contract, and procurement, we also use the DOA to verify the approval signature when processing your request. Next slide, please. This is how you navigate the search for DOA. You can put your department ID in the department ID column and select check request or requisition or expense transfer in the DOA type column. By default, the result will only show the operator ID. If you want to see the name, please select name in the report header. Please keep in mind that only active approver signature will be accepted when you submit your form. Next slide, please. This table helps you to determine which type of DOA to choose based on the form and the type of transaction. For example, if you want to look for an active approver who can approve the ASFR form, please select check requests and requisitions or expense transfer. Please keep in mind that an approver may have an active status on the budget form, may be inactive on the ASFR form and vice versa. So please refer to this table before submitting your request. Next slide, please. If you want to update your department DOA or request access to the DOA, please fill out the Finance DOA Access Request form. The step and navigation are similar to requests for OBIEE access that we covered earlier. If you have any questions or have any issue accessing this form, please reach out to administrative and finance IT. Do you have any questions for me on this? Next slide, please. And these are acronym and abbreviation that we mentioned throughout our presentation. We include them here for your reference. Some of them you will see very often when submitting ASFR form or visiting our website. For example, CFS stands for Common Financial System, or PO as purchase order, PCD as procurement card or P card, and so on. And on the next slide, Lynn will go over some of the announcement and update information.
Okay, let's just go through the announcements and then we're going to do a demo. Good morning. My name is Lynn Ganyak. I'm the Director of ASFR, Accounting Services and Financial Reporting. I posted something in the chat about the liability accounts just in case you needed additional information in there. So please feel free to read it. So basically, the 2.5 dashboards is mainly used, as Estrella said, for the study abroad programs. We do not record revenues or expenses. We track everything in the liability account. So all the student deposits, all the payments to the vendors for the trips are recorded in the liability account. And at the end of the study abroad program, the liability account must have a balance of 0. Either we refund to the student or move the minimal balance to the trust account, as Estrella has mentioned earlier. Okay, so announcements. As Winnie said, we have redesigned our website. This is what it looks like now. If you want to be in the know about what's going on with accounting services and financial reporting, please click the subscribe to accounting updates button. We will notify you about month-end close, anything related to accounting changes in policy or business process or whatever. Next slide, please. Okay, so Justin Chan, he did the introductions. Give him congratulate him. He is our new associate director of ASFR. He started in this position in January 13th. If this is your third time attending the session, I apologize. I'm saying this over and over again. But Justin served on an interim role from April of 2024 until January of this year. So congrats, Justin. We are currently working on automating the request for invoice, or RFI/interagency financial transaction, IFT automation. We are hoping to get a prototype from our IT department anytime soon, and hopefully we can roll this out before the beginning of the new fiscal year, which is July 1st. As mentioned by Justin earlier, OBIEE will be replaced by Titan Insights late spring is what I heard. We don't know what it looks like. We're hoping that whatever we share today will be useful when we are converted into Titan Insights. Also, something new, thank you, Winnie. If you go to our website at the front page, there's ASFR News. So this is where we're gonna also report updates on month-end close. So before the news, before we had this ASFR News section, you would have to go to the website and then services, forms, policies, and then go month-end close. So several steps. This will take you directly to the month-end close blog. Okay, so anything else? Next slide, please. Okay, our next training is our annual year-end training, which is on March 17th. This is presented by a lot of departments from financial services, ASFR, AP, contracts and procurement, budget. We also have somebody from receiving and payroll to discuss all the deadlines for the upcoming fiscal year end, June 30th. And then there's the link for the on-demand OBIEE CFS revenue expense recorded training. Last slide. We also have recorded previous trainings. The previous two trainings are Accounting Services Basics and Accounting Services Forms. You can access the PDF files and the video recordings if you go to our website. Next slide. This is ASFR, including our controller, Michael Aoyang. So since we have a few minutes, I'm going to share this is for the training survey. Please complete this after you have completed. After the session, we would really appreciate your feedback, good, positive. We read the feedbacks, take them to heart, and if there are improvements or anything that you want us to discuss, include, exclude, we will read the feedback and try to improve our sessions. Hopefully, I think we're going to do the next ones in October. So here's the QR code, and there's the link to the Smartsheet form. So please provide your feedback. I think that's the last slide, right, Winnie? So then I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is an example of the Excel sort that we were talking about. So at the top, these are my positive amounts. These are my debits. And at the bottom are the credits. So this is what you normally see in OBIEE 6603D fund. There's a class code. I want to remove the class code and I want to add a program code. Then you have 10 here, negative 10 here. I would hate for everybody to do this one by one. So for you to do that, there is a formula or a shortcut. The formulas are in the presentation, and this is how you do it. So in this, put a formula equals 1 plus 2. Copy it all the way down where your yellow starts, changes to 2. Highlight, copy, paste special values, and then filter, and then sort. Ta-da! That's it. So now you have your debits and credits side by side. Hopefully, that's useful.